they'll eat sticks. They're the stick-lovingest dogs I've ever seen in my life. Anyway, so howdy folks, I'm out here today. It is a hot one. It got up in the 90s today and it was just muggy as all heck. If you're familiar with Kentucky weather at all, you know what I'm talking about. But I've been out for the last few days trying to gather up enough blackberries to make a cobbler. I've already had one this summer, but I wanted to make another one. So I thought we'd talk blackberries today. Most everyone in the United States knows that blackberries are edible. And so this is a little redundant maybe, but I was actually surprised. I brought some friends of mine out into, around my part of the woods, and they didn't know how to ID a blackberry. So I thought we'd give it a little go in this video and talk about it in a minute. Blackberries are an edible fruit. I've heard, now let me digress. I've heard that there are multiple parts of the blackberry plant that are edible. I've heard that you can steep the leaves and you can eat the roots, like steep them in a tea and make like a tonic for gout. And arthritis and stuff like that. But again, that is folk, like that's hand-me-down, old-timer folk type advice. I can't attest to that, and I can't recommend you do that because I don't know. I've been on the internet trying to find, try to locate if that's true or not, and I've gotten conflicting information. So it may be something that you yourself can explore further, especially if you know someone locally who's wood-wise, bush-smart, and wild edibles. But that aside, the blackberry itself, the berry itself is very edible and delicious. But as with any wild edible, make sure you seek the advice of a trained local expert to help you ID them before you try anything from the wild. Okay, so the first thing, blackberries have in the spring, they're a long wiry plant, a bush. They grow in large thickets. Sometimes they grow upward of 10 feet tall, or maybe even more than that. They're a very wiry plant, you can see in the background. I've kept this one kind of out in the sun and kept it tame. But yeah, they grow a big tall plant. They get a white flower, and I'll insert a little clip here that I took in the spring. A little white flower with 5 petals, and then after that little flower goes away, then you'll get the tiniest little blackberry started. Blackberries love to grow in dense thickets out in the woods. They prefer where they can get some sunlight, and they also they'll grow straight out in the middle of the sun, but I find that when they do, the inside of the plants will actually start to dry up and not produce berries as long. But they'll grow anywhere on fence rows, anywhere birds like to post up, hang out, if you know what I mean. The birds eat them and nature. But anyway, blackberry brambles. Bramble is also what it's called by most of the British folk. They call them brambles. But they're a rambler. They're not a vining plant. They grow in a bush and just kind of branch out on the ground. There are several different types of blackberries. There's some domesticated ones and wild ones. And what I'm talking about is wild edibles, because that's what's going to be most serviceable to us if we're in an emergency or something like that. And it's just fun. It's smart. It's a good thing to have in your arsenal of knowledge, is how to ID blackberries. So we're going to get to that real quick. All right, bear with me. All right, guys, as I said, this blackberry is a wild blackberry, but it's in the edge of my yard, and I've kind of cleaned out around it so that I can get into it and enjoy the wild blackberries without having to fight the weeds so much. But as you can see, with a little bit of care, it'll keep producing. I've already taken enough blackberries off of this to eat, just eat a handful every other day. Plus, I've made a blackberry cobbler. So if you get a plant that's half in the sun and half in the shade, it'll keep producing blackberries before the vine dries up. A lot of times what'll happen is you'll get a few really dark black ones, and they'll be good and ripe, and the rest of the vine starts to die before you get to enjoy the full season of the berries. So first, let's talk berries. Berries start out, they're teeny tiny and green, and they'll be more like this. And then they turn almost to white before they start to turn this pink color. And then you'll get more of your darker pink, and then they're a little bit darker red, and then this starts to get closer to edible, and it might. I've heard that if you eat too many in this state, that it can still give you a really bad irritated, upset stomach. So you want to wait till they at least start to turn, you know, closer to the darker purple. This still has a good amount of red in it. But this right here, with this 1 or 2 little red berries, a few of those are, I think these are called drupes. Yeah, drupes. A berry, basically a berry is a fruit consisting of multiple little, I'm pretty sure it's pronounced drupes. But yeah, with 1 or 2 little ones on there, like that's not gonna hurt you. I'm gonna eat that one anyway. But anyway, when they're fully ripe, they're gonna be this dark purple. You can see on one plant, I've got multiple, you know, levels of ripeness here. And I'm going to pick all these little dark ones off, and you'll be surprised how much it'll add up to make towards a cobbler. Now, blackberries are high in antioxidants, they're high in vitamin C, high in vitamin K. Of course, they got glucose because they're sweet. They don't have as much sugar as like an apple or something, but they do have little bits of sugar in it, and that's going to give you energy if you were out and you were tired. But yeah, so perfect, excellent wild edible. Do have some fiber and such like that in it. Let's see. Let's talk about IDing the plant now that we know what the fruit looks like in multiple stages of ripeness. Yeah, the leaves look like this. They almost have like a little hint of almost like fuzz to it. And, you know, of course, you're going to start seeing there's loads of berries on it. You're going to start seeing that flower is a good indication. Then you're going to start seeing the little tiny berries and seeing them get ripe. But with blackberries, if you have any question at all about it, flip the leaf over. And you see this little ridge line right here? Up the back of the leaf. I'm going to try to see if I can autofocus this thing. I don't know if you can see it, but it has teeny tiny little thorns. There by my thumbnail. Hear it? Yeah, it's got a little tiny row of thorns on the back of the leaf. That's a good indication. Now, other uses for this plant, you can take these, you can take the long stalks and beat them down into fibers for cordage. I've seen people do that. I've read multiple places where they can. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's going to do it. That's just about the easiest way to ID them. Oh, another thing is like a raspberry, which is also in the same family. Let's see if we can get over here. When you pick a raspberry, the raspberry, excuse me, I got tangled up there. Raspberry will, when you pluck it, will leave the core. But a blackberry hangs on to it. And a raspberry will be more hollow inside. If you're worried about raspberries, maybe you have an allergy or something, that's one way to distinguish between a blackberry and a raspberry. I can see how they could look similar. Alrighty. I think that's going to just about do it. Alrighty, folks, that's going to do it for me. Nothing too illuminating, but I thought, heck, while I'm out here, you might not know how to ID them, and I'll give you a quick little intro to it as you will. Most people don't know, aside from eating blackberries and their health benefits, I mean, they are good for you. Anything that's got antioxidants and anything wild that's not covered in pesticide and whatnot. That's another thing. When you're on a fence row, make sure you know where you're at and make sure you're not like on a highway where they might have sprayed pesticide. That's something to take away from it. Make sure people haven't sprayed them with that, because if the road company out here will spray the sides of the road to help control the weeds, and that's something you got to consider. Yeah, make sure when you're out hunting them that you've got a hat, cover your face, you get sunburnt, long sleeve, this will roll down to kind of cover and protect your arms, boots, probably bug spray, and you're gonna want to watch out for snakes, because anytime you're in these thickets like this, especially in the summertime around here, man, the snakes get angry. You know, we have rattlesnakes and copperheads around here. I don't see them too often. They are here though. Black snake's probably going to be more likely, or rat snake, you're going to see, and they're not going to hurt you, but they're not good for the heart necessarily. Other things about blackberries, some people don't know, you know, it's a good money-making business too, and it grows in the wild. Of course, you want to save some for the birds, but yeah, you can make upwards of, you know, like an ice cream bucket, like a gallon, you can get $12 to $16 for wild blackberries in my parts. People love them, and there's something kind of, I don't know, special about having wild blackberries. More than, it's just like morel mushrooms or chanterelles or anything from the wild. People love that stuff. And it's the first year I started driving, I actually sold enough blackberries to excuse me, to put brakes and rotors on my car. So I've been at this for a long time, since I was a little kid, and you kind of forget how special they are, and commonplace, because they seem commonplace to us country folk. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you took something away from it. And if you're interested in see these guys in use, like catch and cook wild blackberries, if you will, I'm going to make a cobbler video here in a little bit. And if you're interested in that, just check back with me, or stay tuned. And yeah, as always, thanks for supporting my channel. Thanks for sticking with me, and I hope to see you again next time. All right, first step of cobbling. We're gonna take 8 tablespoons of butter, put it in a 7x9 clear glass baking dish, and we're gonna throw that in the oven and let that butter melt. Step 2 of cobbling. 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 1 cup of sugar, 1-to-1 ratio, and then whisk it together. Little pinch of cinnamon, optional. Alright, 3/4 cup milk. Little spritz of imitation vanilla, optional. And then you're going to whip this into submission. So as you remember, we used all-purpose flour. So to make this rise, we are going to use 1 teaspoon baking soda, 1 tablespoon apple cider vinegar. You got some bubbles in there, you know you did it right. Butter in the bottom, melted butter in the bottom. Now you're going to pour your batter in on top of that. Alright, now that you got your batter on top of your melted butter, you're going to drop in your blackberries. You're going to need between 1.5 cups and 3 cups blackberries, depending on your taste. And make sure you wash and dry them first. Let them air dry. And dropping them on top, the berries will actually sink to the bottom as they cook, so don't worry about this. But yeah, it's all to your taste. More berries will make more of a gooey little deliciousness at the bottom, but with wild blackberries they have a hint of tartness to them, so if you want more sweet and more cake, you'll want to go lighter on the blackberry and more on the... Alright, 350 degrees, 45 minutes. We're going to set the timer for 40 because we're going to check it at 40 to make sure it's good and brown, and then sprinkle a couple tablespoons of sugar on top to caramelize and add a little extra sweetness. Tiny spritz of sugar. And then it goes back in the oven for just a couple minutes. And there you go, folks. Gorgeousness. And I can't tell you nutrition facts. It don't matter. It's delicious. Soul food. Comfort food.